सबको नमस्कार. Pardon me if I'm not keeping the protocol, but I'm very touched in meeting with somebody who's been a very big inspiration for me, Nirmala Sitharaman. To see her here is a bonus. I come here recalling a lot of my old memories working with Sri Shakti. And having been in touch with many of these remarkable women for the work that they've done over the decades, today you find a product of that work, but there are many more that they have done. I remember a few years back, a complete compilation of the status of Indian women being put together and so extensively researched, and which was published in several volumes, capturing the current position of women all over India. If I can link it, it was one of those early reports before the formation of National Commission for Women, the status of women in India, which was compiled. But after that, it was never updated. In fact, I would say with a different perspective altogether, because in my view, that status of women report, which was instrumental in commencing the Women's Commission, however well drafted and well compiled it was, it still had a ideological perspective which was not completely reflective of India. Never mind, that was a great attempt. But what Bharatiya Sri Shakti had done subsequently was a fantastic compilation with a perspective which is so very critical for India's understanding of how Indian women become part of India's story. And just not this century, but over the millennia. So I commend Bharatiya Sri Shakti for steadily contributing to the bank of literature which will contribute towards this thinking, which is so infused with our ideology. It is for want of such bank of literature, we ended up in our universities with women's studies centers, which did not have anything to do with Indian women's thinking or the way in which we've perceived women. So they were like going on a track which none of us could relate to, but they were the initial ones which taught us about how to think about women, as it were. So today, that, if anything, paucity in good literature contributing towards India's perception and understanding of women and their role in our society is being met with. So once again, congratulations, Bharatiya Sri Shakti, for steadily coming up with such good literature which can help us put in place a good framework, an ideological foundation for having meaningful discourse on this topic. All eminent people in the dais, belated namaskar, and it's an honor to be with you all here, and the thinking audience. I'm no scholar. I mean, coming in front of Professor Kapoor, I pale out. But I will certainly put a few thoughts which are, in my thought process, a very important aspect of thinking about women and India's thought about women. And therefore, I'll just sort of randomly flow with some thoughts. As I said, with a big rider that it's not an academically thought through flow of ideas, but I'll place it for your consideration. India's had uninterrupted, over the millennia, active engagement of women in society, as Manisha Kotekarji said, in various different roles. I don't need to recall all of them, but it is important to understand this has been consistent since, let's say if you were looking at Sanskrit literature, whether it was Vedic Sanskrit period or classical Sanskrit period or subsequently the modern Sanskrit era, or similar period references in the respective regional languages. You distinctly find women having played roles, different roles, and no role was prohibited for her comes out very clearly. And this has been completely indigenous, no influence. If anything, it has widened itself in terms of looking at women with a lot more different and newer perspective. So, if this has been consistent through the millennia and all over that geographical conceptual area of what is Bharat, it can even today be seen in different parts, fully blooming out before us. Some examples were taken. I'll just use some of those examples. In the Northeast, even today, you have a custom of a boy who wishes to marry a girl going to that girl's family and spending a whole year to understand how that household is. He gets married after that. And the family of the girl accepts him only after that one time. You might say today's India, it is an exception, but it is a practice which has been there for a long time. Like many things, like many habits, like many practice, unless you keep the practice. In Tamil, there is a beautiful verse which plays on the importance of practice. Sendamilum நாப்பழக்கம் சித்திரமும் கைப்பழக்கம். You want good language, good Tamil to be spoken, that palakkam, that practice will have to be in your tongue. Only by repeatedly speaking and speaking will you speak your language well. Chitramam kaipalakkam. Chitram is art. It's the habit of your hand. You have to keep practicing and keep practicing, only then does it. Similarly, such practices and part of a cultural practice over the millennia, unless it is kept alive, it is not going to be their perfection in its full perfection, nor will it be as much widespread. Today, because of the erosion, maybe in many places it's lost out, but it did exist and it was not looked down upon. Another practice which were women-centric, which has a social impact, economic impact. And even today in some parts of Telangana, you will find it. In villages, the crop is harvested. The crop is taken to the market by the men of the house. Women participate in a lot of activities, storing and everything else. But the important role of keeping the next bunch of seeds for the next cultivation was left to the women. Even today in some villages, you will find women holding that, and they are respected in the village. There's no caste. Any woman or any family which wants seeds for the next crop would come and take it from this lady's hands only. And she'll be in charge of that bandar where the seeds are kept for the next crop. Even today it is done. So these are not practices which have been artificially imposed on the society. It was part of our culture that reflects in the different roles women play. I spoke a bit about art, but that being a very big part of one of our regions and their art, and the stories that the art says, you don't need to go searching for it. The entire Madhubani painting, North Bihar, Darbhanga, Madhubani, you just go see what the story is about. You just see what the girl is given as a heirloom which she takes after her marriage. That Madhubani painting clearly talks about woman, the man being in one part of the picture for the marriage, stories about fertility, reproduction, Now the leftists of the world will tell us that you would only look at women as a commodity, you don't celebrate her. What was Madhubani doing then? And it is not yesterday or today, it's not after the influence of the leftists in this country. That's happened over the centuries. And there again, there is no caste differentiation. The Madhubani painting done by the people belonging to the general castes or by the Dalits have their own stories to say, all about man, woman, in a family, in the society, and so on. So we've celebrated women, celebrated fertility, celebrated reproduction as much as celebrated women for their qualities of scholarship, for their qualities of, warrior, kind of features, and so on. So it is not alien to us. But this statement which I'm making itself is something which I will never want to make. And that's what I would probably advocate. We had our own way of talking about women, giving them a role to do, and celebrating them, like the repeated example of Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, but there were other celebrations also of women. But what has happened is, because of the superimposition of the so-called Western feminism view, our terminologies have also become very much influenced by them. We use their terminology to define ourselves, which is a gross misfit. It just cannot be. I can't fit myself into that definition because I don't live that life. But we are now forced, because it's like a global currency, Unless you translate your currency to that currency, people don't understand the worth of your currency. It cannot happen that way. It's me, my culture, my people, my way of living, which I'll speak about. And certainly, tell me if the role of women in that is undermined. The role is less useful for women, less recognition of women, and so on. So the terminology itself is so now, today, influenced with a different thought process, that today you're playing their game to prove, no, that you're very good. You're a very good hockey player, but you have a cricket bat in your hand, you have a pitch to play it in. It doesn't work that way. So we should now very consciously avoid using terminologies which are imposed on us, but yes, use their terminology to talk about theirs, to critique theirs, to evaluate theirs. But ours will have to be. And in this, I'd like to tell you two books which very strongly influenced me. One by Swami Ranganathananda of the Ramakrishna Mutt, who is no more with us. But he was wonderful a guru who thought about so many different things and about women, particularly in modern India, in the context of India. He'd written extensively. And I, of course, had the fortune of meeting him and taking his blessings several times. He would speak slowly, he will speak less, but he would communicate to you about these sort of things. There's also another scholar who's again no more with us. I've never met him also. But what a beautiful description of what the Indian thought imagined women to be. This actually came as an introduction to a book which was on Lalita Sahasranama. It is in English. The introduction to that book on Lalita Sahasranama was written by somebody called D.S. Sarma. He explains how he imagines the virtuous, the able, the skillful, the artful, the fighting woman of India is. That actually tells you, wow, imagine a society which can have a perception of a woman with these beautiful qualities and is seen as a virtuous because she is able to stand up for her family, her community, her country. But this is what is her achievement. Now that kind of a perception, if a community, if a country, if a civilization has it, can it treat its women differently? There can be aberrations, no doubt. But that perception which D.S. Sharma has written is something worth reading. I would request you, if not in one go, it's worth reading and understanding that this is that civilization, which is literally sort of imagined what its women is. No doubt, no doubt. We've heard about various different stories. And there are just not warrior princesses or queen about whom we know since last 200 years. But women warriors were also brought to the front of the war. I know in North India, Deepavali is celebrated on a particular time. In South, at least from Tamil Nadu, I can say, we don't celebrate Deepavali as Rama reaching Ayodhya. For us, it is Naraka Chaturdashi, which is on the Chaturdashi day. And it is on the morning. And that celebrates Narakashura's vada, meaning killing Narakashura. And who does the killing? Everybody would say, and I for a very long time would have also said it, that it is Sri Krishna. No. He brings Satyabhama to fight. He's only behind. Because there's a curse that he won't die of a man. So, unless she could have been such a warrior, even Sri Krishna wouldn't have brought her to the front and said, fight that man out, that Asura out. There are even enough such examples. So we didn't look down upon, hey, what is this Sri Krishna, such a warrior, he couldn't fight this man, this Asura. No. If it requires to use a woman's valor, it was accepted in our dharma. That is the flexibility that dharma offers us. And that's where dharma doesn't deny woman's role. It doesn't look at man or woman. It looks at dharma to be performed. And many times women have been brought to the forefront to perform that dharma, which you don't see them very often doing. And also this kind of a narrative from the West would also speak about, no, this was all upper caste. Poor class, never. And there was a very big social or treating as second class, people who didn't fall within the broad contours of good conduct and so on. Even that is a false campaign. And it involves women, and therefore I'll elaborate. I'm sure you would have heard of Jabala. Her son, she herself didn't know who was her father, who was his father. Because she was working as a dasi. But she didn't deny the boy, Satyakama, her son, access to education. And if she didn't deny, how did she provide it then? Because after all, when you went to a guru, the guru asks, whose son are you? She tells her son, you go, search your guru, find your guru, but tell him you're Satyakama Jabala. Jabala, son Satyakama. And the guru will understand. It so happens the guru understood the scholarship eagerness in him, the thirst for knowledge in him, admitted him. Does this deny education or does this allow education for anybody? So long as he had the thirst for knowledge, so long as he had the drive to come in search of a guru. And Jabala did not think she was one less. Oh, I've been leading this miserable life. No, she didn't say that. This is my work, I'm doing it. I'm not suggesting that was right, I'm not suggesting that was good, I'm not suggesting that Jabala was happy, I don't know any of that. But she certainly didn't allow that to put herself down or put her son down. Neither did that guru. So it is a civilization which has constantly included everybody in its scheme of things. It never denied anybody. There are varied such stories about Mahabharata, particularly women. Women in Mahabharata is a chapter in itself that we should read. Meaning, Mahabharata doesn't keep a chapter like that. But the stories of various women, which many of the leftists have taken out and said, Dekha, in Hindu civilization, this is the treatment offered to women. No. What that story tells you, Draupadi is one which all of us know about how injustice was done to her. She fights, she takes a vow, she comes out of it. There are several such stories about women during the various episodes in Mahabharata. But in each case, what I see is, despite the injustice, the woman finds her own course, proves herself and achieves what she wants to achieve. And that also is recorded. And that also is recorded, and we didn't shy away from writing about it. Our civilization never shies away from stating things as they were. That is why they are called itihasa, as it was. There's no filtering, we will not say about this, but we will say about it. No. And therefore, I would strongly recommend and suggest we should get out of this defensive mindset. Oh, this Western feminism, look how we... No, that's all right, that is yours. I don't need to defend myself in your terminology, in your perception of a woman, where you talk about, oh, don't commodify a woman. No, none of that. We had enough and more examples to show how women have had their role. Every one of our temple architecture will tell you about the various women, whether they were into dancing, whether they were into, tapas mode, they were seeking truth. Everything is there. So, I would think the few things which will come out of this book. One other thing about Indian marriages. The women is now completely servile to the husband. It pains me. There cannot be a more man and woman friend-like treatment offered in any other marriage than in an Indian marriage. The man actually seeks a hand by saying, look, I want you as a friend for my life. Saptapadi, look at each one of the fairies' mantras. I honestly want every one of those young people who get married to read those 7 mantras. It only constantly calls her as my friend, Sakhi. You're from my rib, from man's rib. Eve is born out of man's rib, and therefore you're subordinate to me, you're lesser than me. None of that. We'll both have to keep this house. We both will have to be companion together. We both will have to earn our living and also support good causes around. We both will stand by each other throughout life. You are my friend. I am with you throughout. Is the kind of principle with which even today, from the Vedic days till today, the weddings happen. But we don't highlight any of that. Even at that time, you're, namaskar, you wait, one photo. No, you're in a hurry. All right, come, please take a... Kam se kam wo saptapati ka mantra ka man, woman equality. Nothing better than that. It's an indigenous civilizational value. I'll finish with, this is a month of Margari, a very sacred month. And why do I talk about this month now? In Tamil Nadu, from 8th century, a woman, a child, an adolescent girl, who wanted only to marry Sri Krishna, in the form of Ranganatha, composes 30 verses. She has also composed a different poem altogether. And in that looks at Krishna as her own, I want to marry him, I want to be with him. And brings out the achievements of the Lord in all the Dashavatara. The scholarship, the bhakti, that devotion with which she aspires only to marry him, no human. This civilization has treated her as one of the 12 Alvars. Alvars are people who praise the Lord Vishnu. It was not reserved only for men Alvars, a woman Alvar, an adolescent Alvar, a girl, and her worship, her way of worshipping is treated as one of the highest forms of bhakti. We didn't stay away. We didn't wait to beatify people, monks, women, women, nuns or monks as you would call. They were part of us. The way she worshipped is the way in which all of us think bhakti should be displayed. So we didn't ever deny. Without taking more of your time, so this is a civilizational issue. It's a civilizational marker for us that our standards of dealing with women, our standards of giving role to women are unique, about which we should talk in our terms. And we should be proud to do that rather than try to fix it into some other template and always find ourselves wanting. But in that, this is a great attempt. I once again congratulate Bharti Shri Shakti for it. Thank you.